6 things that everybody can and should, in my opinion, be doing before they ever start CDL school to ensure that they get through the process of getting their CDL and finding a job smoothly. Check out this post, family. I paid for CDL school and don't regret it, but I ain't gonna lie. Everybody want a year to 6 months experience. I kind of suggest people just go ahead to paid training somewhere for a year so you get both. Then go where you want, because you kind of got to do the same thing after going to school. So here's an individual that apparently paid for CDL training, paid up front out of pocket so that they can have the freedom to work wherever they want to after they get their CDL. And then they started looking for employment and couldn't find anybody to employ somebody fresh out of school with no experience. So they're suggesting that you should just go to company-sponsored CDL training. You're gonna be locked into the company for a year, but you won't have to pay for training out of pocket, and you're guaranteed employment, and then after that, you can just go wherever you want. So in this video, I wanna give you a few tips to help you get your trucking career started smoothly. A lot of the times when we come in trucking, we've bet the farm. We may have quit our jobs already, and we really need that process of getting our CDL and finding a job to go smoothly. So my little disclaimer is, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is 100%, but if you do what I'm gonna share with you in this video, some of these things you guys may be doing, I got a feeling a lot of you guys are not doing these things. And so if you're doing these things, you're doing all you can to make sure that you don't have any hiccups throughout that process. So the first tip, and you probably heard this one before, is you need to have your learner's permit before you ever start CDL school. And there's a couple reasons for that. One reason is, in order to get your learner's permit, you're gonna need to pass your DOT physical to get your medical card. Now, when I went to CDL school, it was 7 years ago, it was a while ago, but I don't think the process has changed very much. When I started CDL school, I didn't have a learner's permit. The school said it was no problem, we could start, and they would help us with that after we started school. And they did. It was the type of school that, I paid for my CDL training up front so I could go where I wanted to afterwards. And it was 2 months. It was on the weekends. So about halfway through, I remember a gentleman that went to get their learner's permit a month in, halfway through the training, and he realized that he could not pass a DOT physical, which means he couldn't get his learner's permit, which means he couldn't get his CDL. But he had already paid his money to the school. So that's one reason why you want to have your learner's permit before you start school. The other reason is so that you can get more drive time, more practice time behind the wheel. Again, when I went 7 years ago, there were many people that on test day didn't feel that they had enough practice time, enough time behind the wheel. I'm not going to put all of this on the individual because, again, you can do everything you can do in your power and still come out of school feeling like you didn't have enough time behind the wheel. But if you don't have your learner's permit before you start school, the most you can do in school involving a truck is practice on your backups and practice on your pre-trip. But you can't go out on the road with a trainer and actually get wheel time unless you have your learner's permit. So to ensure that you have as much time as possible to get behind the wheel and practice, have your learner's permit before you ever start CDL school. The second tip that I want to share with you actually would have helped this gentleman in the post that I just read a few minutes ago. Start looking for employment before you ever start CDL school. This gentleman obviously didn't start looking for employment until after he started CDL school. Now, here's another tip for you. People have asked me, what's the best type of school? One that you pay for out of pocket so that you can go wherever you want to once you get your CDL, or company-sponsored training. You're locked in for a year, but you don't have to pay for training up front, and you're guaranteed, you're guaranteed a job, you're guaranteed to get your training. Which one of those is better? And I don't feel one is better than the other. They both have different purposes. When I came in trucking, I have a family. My whole family's in trucking. I have plenty of friends that's in trucking. So I already have an established network of people that are in the profession. Plus, I already had a job nailed down before I started CDL school. So for me, it was not a problem with going to CDL school, one that couldn't employ me afterwards because I already had a job nailed down. But if you're the type of individual, which many of you are, that you don't have a network, you don't have family and friends that do the profession already, and you're not sure where you're going to work afterwards, to me, that's the individual that company-sponsored training would be better for. Now, again, nothing is 100%. There's plenty of people out here that don't have a network, don't know where they're going to work afterwards, go to paid training, pay up front, get their CDL, and then find a company to hire them with no experience. But I've always said trucking is very personal, and just because something happens one way for one individual don't mean it's gonna happen for you. But you can start getting a sense of that, a feel for that, before you ever go to CDL school by calling around and start trying to figure out what's available to you as far as employment before you ever start. So you start reaching out to 20 or 30 companies before you start school, and forget about the fact that you're hearing that people find jobs straight out of school. You reached out to 30 companies and everybody told you they're not hiring without any experience. That may stop you from going to paid training. That, to me, what type of school you're going to go to, the main thing to be factoring in for that is, do you have employment locked down afterwards? So again, this is just one of those things that if you have a little bit of knowledge of, it can eliminate the possibility of having unnecessary hiccups throughout this process. Here's another tip for you as well. Know your driving record, so that when you're having conversations with people that could potentially hire you after you get to school, after you get your CDL, then you can share with them, or you can ask them, how many points is too much. I hear stories from people that get their CDL, they think they're in with the company, a company's gonna hire them, they think they're gonna be working in a couple of weeks, and then the company checks their driver's license and discovers that there's something on their record, on their driving record, and the individual doesn't even know about it. If you're gonna be applying for driving jobs, it makes sense that you would know your driving record. It's the same thing as far as your criminal record. You need to know this stuff up front, and this is the stuff that you could ask about when you're calling around checking on employment before you ever start CDL school. Here's another tip for you, a little quick tip. A lot of people come in trucking and want to know the best company to start with, and then they start looking for a job and they're like, I can't find nobody to hire me right now. And whenever I hear anybody say that, the first thing I want to remind them is trucking is supply and demand. Everybody knows that. So here's what that means in this scenario. The best companies have people lined up at their doors waiting to come and drive for them. So in other words, if you're looking for the best job, you may have to be prepared to do some follow-up. They may not be looking for drivers right now because they got applications all laying all over the office, because the best companies attract plenty of drivers. To get on with the broker that I pull for right now, I had to keep following up. I had to keep calling. He kept saying, I don't have anything for you right now. We don't need you right now. And then one time I called and he was like, we need you. So if these companies don't need you, they'll let you know that, but you might have to be prepared to keep following up. And that actually brings me to another tip. Start networking before you ever start CDL school. Start building your network. Start looking around for other people that are in the profession, in the industry, that can actually help you. And this is something that's good for individuals that don't have a network already. So if nobody around you is in trucking, then when you're asking people and you're looking to network, you're gonna do the same thing we did in network marketing. You're never gonna approach anybody directly. They always told us, don't approach nobody directly and say, hey, do you have a business mind, and would you like to earn some extra money? They told us never to approach people directly like that. It was always, who do you know that has a business mind and wants to make some extra money? Or do you know somebody that has a business mind and wants to make some extra money? That's probably a bad example, but the point is, you're gonna work through people. Everybody that you talk to is, do you know anybody, or who do you know? So start building your network. It's gonna prove to be invaluable in getting through this process. One more tip for you guys: start getting your knowledge together as far as endorsements. If you understand building value, if you understand what it is to create value, that is to bring something to the table that everybody else isn't bringing to the table. If the average driver is showing up as a newbie to a job with just a CDL, you can set yourself apart from the crowd by having a few endorsements. Now, I've been driving a truck for 7 years. I haven't felt the need to have endorsements yet, but that don't mean I won't have the need for endorsements in the future. And while you're in the mode of passing tests and taking tests, from the research that I did, from the stuff I read about getting endorsements, they sound simple enough that it's like you might as well just go ahead and get them while you're in that mode. This is one of the things that can set you apart and potentially open you up to more opportunity as a new truck driver.